Good day there, once again viewers, this is your mate Kamikaze78 here, and today guys you're going to be seeing some Titanfall 2 and Planetside 2 gameplay in the background while we have a chat about progression systems in video games, and how important it is to find the right mix of quality and quantity when it comes to designing a rewarding and engaging progression system, using online multiplayer shooters as a catalyst for the discussion. Now just really quickly folks, I want you to think about all of the FPS games that have come out recently in the last couple of years, and then think about how many of them had a progression system of sorts in their online multiplayer segment. Got your list? Okay, now think about how many of those progression-based first-person shooter games used gear and weapons for their progression as a reward system. The only games that I can really think of that didn't have weapons as rewards in the progression system are games like Overwatch, CSGO, Squad, or Insurgency. All games that include an online multiplayer with a progression system, but have no weapons as unlocks for playing the game and gaining said experience. So I think it's clear when I say that using weapons as unlocks in online multiplayer shooters has been a long-standing trend within the gaming industry, and rightfully so to be honest, considering that what gamers are looking for these days are more rewards to acquire and more things to unlock. I mean, take a look at the original Titanfall game. A major complaint was its lacking amount of replayability thanks to its rather shallow progression system with very little weapons and abilities to unlock. But here we are today with Titanfall 2 with a considerably larger amount of things to unlock in the multiplayer, and the game has been received by the community a lot more positively due to that change among others. But it wasn't just the fact that more progression has been added to the game, it's also the fact that the said progression was of a really high quality. What do I mean by this? Well, not only has there been more progression added to the game with more weapons and abilities to unlock, but those said weapons feel rewarding to unlock because they are each something new and unique. Let's take a look at the assault rifles of Titanfall 2 for example. There may only be 4 weapons available in this category, but each and every one of them is unique and brings something very different to the table, to the point where there is no crossover in playstyles between them. The RC201 carbine, a multi-purpose assault rifle that works pretty much everywhere, at least a little bit. The Hemlock, a burst fire rifle that delivers a burst of damage fast. The G2, a rifle that people use when they like to do a little bit of sniping but still want to have a chance when in CQC combat. And the Flatline, a sustainable assault rifle that delivers fully automatic fire that is sure to hit a target really heavily. This just emphasizes my point where each weapon has a clear purpose, and unlocking it subsequently unlocks a new playstyle for you to try out, which makes the game much more exciting to play in the long run because you want to keep unlocking things and finding out what new playstyles those things come with. There may not be a lot of weapons to unlock in the individual assault rifle category, but each one matters and feels considerably different to the last one you were using, and the same concept applies to every class of weaponry in Titanfall 2. Take a look at the SMGs, LMGs, snipers, even secondary such as pistols and launchers. Every single weapon is something that unlocks an entirely new playstyle once you gain access to it. Now I'll be honest folks, when I first got into Titanfall 2 and saw how little weapons there were comparatively to other online shooters that were on the market at the time, I was a little bit worried. I was worried that the game would not be able to keep me playing it for the long term. But now that I have sunk countless hours into Titanfall 2, I've now realized that by placing such an emphasis on quality over quantity when it comes to the amount of weapons to unlock, Titanfall 2 removes itself from a situation that I now like to call the design crossover. Now that isn't a technical term or anything, it is just something that I use to identify the situation where two unlockable weapons in a game act very similar to one another, so much to the point where if you own one, it's very hard to justify using the other one. Now this so-called design crossover is a direct result of developers stretching themselves too thin by adding too many weapons without being able to make each weapon unique within the confines of the game's setting and the game's premise. Now, Battlefield 1 for me was a game that definitely ran into this situation quite a bit, simply because it was tied down to a modern day realistic era, and it had a plethora of weapons for people to use by the time all of the DLC had launched for the game. And because of this, it's really difficult for the developers to make that many fully automatic weapons feel different and unique, and they couldn't go about making interesting mechanics or adding laser weapons to the game because it was set in a modern day era. So when the DICE developers had this much weaponry in the game but were creatively limited by the era that they were working with, they ran into a lot of situations of design crossover where they had multiple weapons in the same game performing the same role in very slightly different ways. Now, whether the developers added that amount of weapons to attempt to artificially lengthen the lifespan of the game through lengthening the progression tree or as a direct result of community feedback, it doesn't really matter. It still has the same result of making the progression of the game seem less worthwhile and less interesting, because by that point the players have already seen all of the creative opportunities that the developers have. They can't really release a truly unique weapon that is new to the game at that point. Now, to provide more examples, and staying on the other side of the fence from Titanfall 2, we have Planetside 2. Now, I know that a lot of people are going to be grabbing their pitchforks here at the mere mention of Planetside 2, thanks to my history with the game, and let me just say that it has been getting better at avoiding the whole design crossover thing as of late with its most recent additions to the armory. The weapon that you can see me using here in the gameplay is the brand new NSX Tomio, which is a fantastic weapon that brings about something fresh thanks to its unique headshot multiplier bonus. However, the game has had a history of having multiple weapons that are almost identical to one another, which as a result makes people wonder, why are these two weapons both in the game? Or couldn't the developers have been just a little bit more innovative here? When Planetside 2 first launched, almost all of the weapons looked completely identical, with only slight differences being present in their receivers, buttstocks, or grips. But there are even cases of weapons being so bloody similar that certain YouTubers, including myself, had to make comparison videos to ensure that people knew the finite differences that existed between them. For example, take a look at the T16 Rhino and the T32 Bull available to the Terran Republic Heavy Assault class. Both of these weapons have the exact same damage model, rate of fire and recoil patterns, with only very slight differences being present in their magazine size, muzzle velocity, and attachment options. Now that is an example of lazy progression that doesn't reward the player base in any way, and can make the progression of the game overall seem grindy or even lazy at times. So what I'm trying to get at here, guys, is that whilst progression in video games is important, there is a certain point in time where you have too much progression, to the point where if you start sacrificing the quality of your progression for the quantity of it, the game becomes quickly grindy, and the reward aspect of the progression becomes a whole lot less rewarding per se. It's all about ensuring that the progression of a game leads a player from one style of gameplay to the next, ensuring that they have new play styles to try out after they unlock a new item. If you provide the same thing over and over again with a different skin and slightly different stats, then you're going to run into a very grindy game that doesn't reward the player base for their time and effort in the game. And as we all know, rewarding player bases for their time and effort is something that has become, a very popular trend in video games. So guys, with all that said, that's going to wrap up today's video discussing weapon progression or progression in general in video games, and how to ensure that it remains not only honest, but at the same time rewarding to the player bases. If you guys enjoyed today's video, whether it be in the form of the commentary, the gameplay, or if you just found today's video overall interesting, a backhanding of that like button would be greatly appreciated. And if you find yourself backhanding that like button, why don't you go around and backhand the subscribe button whilst you are at it? Did you agree with me, disagree with me, or if you have anything to add to the topic of this video, then that comment section is waiting for you to start typing away at your keyboards. Let me know what you think, guys. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Let me know of a game that's got really grindy progression, or a game that's got really lazy progression. I'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Once again, guys, I hope you enjoyed today's video. Peace out, and I'll be seeing you guys next time. Have a good one.